Hi everyone and welcome to this Fan Arts Friday video. In this video I'm working on a drawing of Mario and Cappy from Super Mario Odyssey. And I've been really excited about this because I recently picked up a Nintendo Switch and I've been having so much fun, and I knew I was going to work on this drawing at some point, and I really hope you enjoy watching. While working on the sketch and thinking about the layout, I decided to work on a front-facing portrait within a comic panel. And my hope was that this comic panel would look like a window that they're kind of poking their head out of, and so it really makes them look like they're standing out on the page. In terms of the pen outlines, I was using a Copic Multiliner SP0.03, and I always love using a pen like this, especially for drawings in this style, where the smoothness of the lines is extremely important to me. Once the outlines were completed, I used Copic markers and Prismacolor pencils for the colouring, starting with his skin tones, and I used pinkish white and pale heath for the base layer. Then to add shading on top of that, I used a pale grape marker, but I found that this was far too grey, so I used a blush marker on top of that shading to add a brighter and a warmer tone. Then to add highlights around some of the features of his face, I used a white Prismacolor pencil and my Uniball Signo Broad white ink pen. And I also decided to use blush pink and pink Prismacolor pencils to add a warmer blushed tone to the skin. For his eyes, I used a mixture of Prussian blue, sky blue and ice blue. Then to add some finer details, I used a white Prismacolor pencil. To add more depth to them, I used a cool grey 1, 3, 5 and 7, just adding gradients of shading, and then over the top of that I added bright highlights with my Uniball white ink pen, just to really make his eyes stand out as much as possible. For his eyebrows and his mustache, I used the same technique, where I started with a dark bark marker for the base colour. Then on top of that, to add the hair texture, I used black and white Prismacolor pencils. To add some darker shading within his mouth, I used a black marker and then faded that inwards with the cool grey markers. Then to add a bit of colour to his tongue, I used a rose red, also making sure to add a little bit of a highlight to this area as well. For his hair, I started with a brown marker, but I felt like it was a bit too bright, so I added a maroon marker on top of that as well, followed by using the black and the white Prismacolor pencils again to add more texture. Then after that, it was time to work on Cappy. For the bright red colouring, I used a crimson marker. Then for the shading, I used a cardinal marker, which is a much deeper, darker red. Then for the eyes, I used cool grey 5 and 7 around the outside. Then for the irises, I used a mixture of cardinal, crimson and cerise markers. Then I added more depth to the eyes in a similar way I did with Mario's eyes, where I used all of the cool grey markers. Then followed that with a bunch of highlights with the white Prismacolor pencil and the Uniball white ink pen. For the final part of this drawing, it was time to work on Mario's clothing, and I used crimson, cardinal, sky blue and honey markers for all of the different layers of colouring. Then on top of that, I used a white Prismacolor pencil to add the texturing. Then on top of everything, I added shading with the cool grey markers, just adding shading underneath his head and underneath each layer of clothes. Then finally, I just added some final touches, a few more areas of shading around the drawing, and a few more highlights to really push Mario and Cappy in front of that comic panel. Then after that, this drawing was completed. This was so fun to work on, and it took about 3.5 hours to complete. Please let me know what you think, and also let me know if you have any suggestions for future videos. If you want to see more stuff like this, then feel free to subscribe, and any likes or shares on this video, they really mean a lot to me. If you want to follow my progress and see photos before I post these videos, then check out the links in the description box below to check out my Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And once again, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I'll see you all soon.